Hi everyone, my name is Iman Sawarshah and I'm the writer of Stilettos in a Sandbox.blog. You can follow me and subscribe to my website at stilettosinaSandbox.blog. The website will be below this video. And if you're interested in following me on Instagram or on my YouTube channel, that would be Stilettos in a Sandbox. Today's video is going to be on hockey and my experience as a first-time freshman mom for hockey. And the reason I made this video is because there was a lot of hesitation before I decided to sign my younger son up for hockey, just because, you know, you hear things like, oh, it's such an expensive sport and it's so demanding and it's so cliquey with the parents and it's so much commitment and blah, blah, blah. So I decided I would kind of give other moms who are considering, moms and dads that are considering hockey, kind of my, the things I thought were great and the things I thought that were not so great about hockey. Regardless, we will continue to play hockey in my house because my 5-year-old runs this house and he loves the sport. So what he says goes when it comes to sports. Also, he just absolutely loves the sport. He is so determined and I don't want to break that. So regardless on my feelings on certain things about hockey, I will still keep taking him to practice and I will keep going. Anyway, so just to kind of give you a little bit of background, when it comes to hockey, I have no history of hockey. I grew up in Sri Lanka and then moved to the United States when I was 8. I played basketball when I was younger, which is awesome because it helps me understand what my older son is doing because my older son plays basketball. But as far as hockey, I have no experience, no history with hockey whatsoever. My boyfriend, who is one of 3 boys and comes from a huge hockey family, they all played hockey growing up, whether it was at school or just on the ice, outside or whatever it is. Not only that, his family follows hockey with the local colleges and things like that. So hockey is pretty big in their family. So just dating John, my boyfriend, I've gotten to know a little bit more about hockey. But being that we're in a long distance relationship, he doesn't get to hold my hand through it, which kind of sucks. But he does get to come visit for games and things like that, which is really nice. So with that being said, I also want to say, as far as parenting, I'm a single mom. So a lot of these, the negatives about hockey really have to do with the fact that I'm just overscheduled and really, really busy. So keep that in mind. If you are a dual parent household, this is probably gonna go a lot smoother for you. So we'll start out from the beginning. I decided that I was going to get my son into hockey because he was just glued to watching hockey games. He wanted all Minnesota Wild gear. He wanted a hockey stick. He wanted to get on the ice, and he picks up sports really quickly. But this sport was unlike any other. Like, he got on the ice last year and was just kind of jetting off, and I thought it would be kind of a waste to not put him out there and at least see what he truly felt about hockey. So with that being said, since I live in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, and hockey is a pretty big deal here, I thought, what better place than to start? So I'll start off by saying hockey registration. I completely missed the email, as usual. And a friend of mine in town here just happened to call me 20 minutes before registration was closed and said, hey, have you been to registration? And of course I said no. And she's like, you need to go. So on the drive over there, you know, I'm asking my 9-year-old son to look up what we need to bring and blah, blah, blah. Luckily I had a checkbook in my car and we get there with like 15 minutes to spare. And the lady was really nice and she had asked me if I had ever had my kids in hockey before, and I said no, and so she kind of guided me through all of it. It was really overwhelming because it seemed like everybody there just knew what they were doing. Like, they were grabbing packets, they were signing checks, they were grabbing raffle tickets and chatting and whatever else, and here I am with my 2 kids after work, just a complete mess. So anyway, so we get past the registration section, and she informs us that I have to write 3 checks. Was it 3 checks? 2 checks, I'm sorry. And a third would be later. So the 2 checks, one would be for the raffle tickets, one would be for volunteering, and one would be for later on for the deposit for equipment. I was a little overwhelmed at all the requirements for volunteer hours just because, once again, I'm a single parent with 2 kids and 2 different sports and a lot of activities, so I was a little nervous that I wasn't going to be able to make that commitment. But being that I was first year in hockey, they were pretty lenient on that, and that was really great. Second thing is, obviously I had no hockey experience, anything. So one huge thing that was in my mind was the equipment. Is investing in hundreds of dollars of equipment for a sport that maybe my son would not even enjoy. But the great thing, at least here in Detroit Lakes, is that they let you rent a lot of their equipment, especially for the younger kids. So my kid was a termite in the beginning of the season, and he got to use a lot of their equipment, and then some items we did have to purchase on our own. Some of the pricier items, which is fine because that is kind of the commitment you have to make. So anyway, there were some items that they were out of, so they just had informed me that I would just go to the local sports shop and pick it up and just bill it to the hockey associations because they were getting new equipment. So I think that was pretty key. I don't know how other towns or other cities do it, but in Detroit Lakes, I think that they get a lot of support from the community, so they're able to do that, especially for the first-time players. So I thought that was really great. The not so great part about that is registration was a few weeks out before hockey started, and things just fly off the shelf in this small town. So I actually went to the sports shop as soon the day that they received their new supplies, and by the time I got there, everything was gone. And I mean, 4 hours after we got the email, all the stuff was gone. So then I just kind of had to keep calling every day. I literally set a reminder on my phone to call the sports shop every day just to make sure that I was able to get the equipment that he needed. There were some things that I had to go and search for just because the sports shop just informed me that they weren't going to have it in time. But they were really honest, and they just said, hey, this is where you can maybe get it in the meantime, or get something used and things like that. So that was really great. It's a Lake Sports Shop here in Detroit Lakes, and they were just awesome, really great to work with. Anyway, so that was that. We got his equipment. We got all the equipment we needed. I went to a nearby city, Fargo, and got everything else that he needed, that I needed to purchase on our own, and the things that they didn't have at this sports shop here. He was ready to go, and we got to our first practice, and I had watched a ton of YouTube tutorials, and if anybody's interested, I can get them, the tutorials, but you honestly can't explain how to tie hockey laces over the phone. So my boyfriend attempted, but that wasn't how it all went down when I actually got there. So anyway, so I get there, I put the equipment on, I put the socks on under his shin pads, and sent him on the ice, and his feet just looked like this. And one of the parents said, hey, do you want to get your son off the ice? He's going to break his ankles. And my husband can tie his laces for you. And this is one of Mikhail's classmates' moms that said this to me. So it was really nice of her to do that. So I got him off the ice. Her husband tied his laces, and I watched. And there's really a trick to it. I mean, you got to pull, you got to push the tongue out, you got to pull, it's really, there's a lot to it. I mean, you think these are the little things, but this really matters, I guess. So anyway, so I watch him get the skates on, and he's out, and they mentioned to me that the socks actually go over the shin pads. So not only does my 5-year-old just look completely unprepared on ice, I look like an idiot for a parent. But he comes off the ice on his first practice, and he is just absolutely in love with the sport. He is just like, I can't wait for my next practice. And here I am thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to leave work like 20 minutes early so I can get this kid in his skates and get him out on the ice. So other than learning those things for first-time hockey mom, first-time hockey anything, was a little tough. But honestly, the parents and the YouTube videos I watched made it a little bit easier. Overall, hockey can be very overwhelming. A lot of these parents have been doing hockey for years. They have, child after child after child going into hockey, or they have nieces and nephews or friends or family that have gone through hockey, so they know how everything works. Within the first week, we got an app for our phones that I can honestly say that app just kept going off and off and off. And I was just amazed at how many messages we can actually receive about 5-year-olds playing hockey, and it was a lot. But it was awesome. It's a great community. I didn't get too involved just because I don't know enough about hockey. And with my busy schedule, once again, I just didn't think that I could commit to all of the planning and things like that. But we had a few great moms that were kind enough to do that. Persistent moms, they are on it. They are white on rice on it. They are just, with all due respect, I mean, they do an amazing job. They get signups for the concession stands. They get donut money, and they get pizza together for the kids at the end of the year. So, I mean, they do a lot of behind the scenes work that probably doesn't get appreciated. But so thank you to all of them. But it's overwhelming. I'm pretty sure we were asked for donut money for a good 4 weeks. So we were asked for $10 for donuts, so the kids can have donuts every Saturday. And it's overwhelming when we get text messages. But you know what? In all honesty, I work in sales, and sometimes you do have to hound people because people just don't stay on top of it. So it is kind of great that there are so many organized moms out there that are in charge of hockey, because I couldn't do it. Other than that, let's see, because my son is so young, a lot of times the weekend practices were early. So if I wasn't working on a weekend, I still had to be up by 8 to get my son to the rink at 9, and sometimes at 8, and sometimes at 7. When tournaments start coming into town, their practices move early just so that they can have ice for the actual games, which is understandable. But once again, there were some practices at 7 and 8 a.m. So it is a lot of commitment. And the other thing is having more than one child. So I have 2 kids. I have Malik, who's 9, and Mikhail, who's 5. Malik, my 9-year-old, is not interested in hockey, but you know, he's there for support. He's there at every game, every practice, and he hated it. It's cold, he's bored, he doesn't want to be there, but in our house, we support each other in everything the other person does, so I thought it was important for him to be there. I think they call them rink rats or arena rats, something like that, I'm not really sure. But my son was definitely one of those. He just had to be there. Or maybe those are the kids that actually want to be there, the rink rats. My kid definitely wasn't one then. Anyway, so that is something to keep in mind. If you have another kid, I say bring iPads, bring coloring books, bring homework, bring whatever it is, because to have to hear that other child just go on about how boring it is more painful than actually having to be there for 2 practices during the week and then a Saturday practice. Let's see, what else can I think of about hockey? I can honestly say overall it was a different experience. I've never had to feel like sports were such a commitment. But I think that it makes sense when the coaches and some of those parents who put in so much time and effort into organizing and getting this sport together. I think the least that I could do as a parent is just show up for practice. So I think that it's just a lot more commitment, and I don't know how to fully explain that except for you'll feel it in your first game, your first practice. Another thing is the raffle tickets. So I was under the impression that I didn't have to sell raffle tickets because it was my first year, and it seems to be that there was a lot of parents in that under that same impression. But in our town, you do, regardless of if it's your first year or your 10th year, you do need to sell tickets. And we were all badgered about it, and it was a little frustrating because sometimes when you're not from this town or you have no hockey history, it's kind of hard just to go ask people to buy tickets that are $20. But the bonus of that is the money that they raise from that goes to things like the hockey equipment that we got to rent instead of purchasing. It also is awesome because the prizes were great. There was like a trip to Hawaii. There was a fishing boat. So it goes to show that in this town, hockey is fully supported by the community, which is really great all in all. Other than that, I can honestly say hockey was a pretty good experience as far as how much my son enjoyed it, to see how happy he was and to see how committed some of those coaches were, being there early and taking a little bit of time to, knock him on his helmet after the game and say good job or point out little things is really, really awesome. The only negatives, I guess I could say, is that sometimes with hockey, it does feel a little cliquey. It does feel like the parents that have been doing it for years are just kind of the it crowd. But it also could be that I didn't really put myself out there because I just could not commit at this point in time to being a true hockey mom and really getting in there and getting to know some of the other moms and things like that. So it's not really a negative, it's just something I noticed. And if I was to do, and when I do hockey again, I will definitely make more of an effort to get to know some of those parents and really kind of put myself out there and try to help out the team a little bit more. Other than that, hockey was great, and we will keep doing it just because my son loves it. And I don't know if this video helps at all, but I hope it does. And I would say, some of those parents are really willing to help out. So if you have questions and things like that, just jump online to your hockey association. A lot of them have their contact information on the website. So I would probably just go and contact